Hi, I'm back with the third episode of this series of writing about curfews for teenagers. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, I highly recommend watching them first, then come to this one. We talked about how to paraphrase the keywords of the question and also 3 main ideas for why you may agree with this opinion of having curfew. Now, let's talk why you may disagree with this. As I told you before, we have 3 main ideas again today with supporting information, examples, and the most related vocab. Let's see the question first to remember the details of it in case you have forgotten that. If you disagree with the idea of the question, your general attitude would be this fact that a curfew is ineffective in the long term or in the long run, mean in a long period of time. And it's not a foolproof or infallible method or solution or plan. Let's go to the Langman dictionary and see what is the meaning of foolproof first. A foolproof method, plan, system, etc. for our curfew is certain to be successful. Synonym, infallible. And if you want the details of the word infallible, let's see that one too. Always right and never making mistakes. You can say curfews are not the foolproof or infallible methods. What we can do instead? Then you can talk about another option, because they are not effective when we consider a long period of time, a long term or a long run. First idea, why you disagree? What is your exact main idea? They are ineffective because they create more desire to be outdoors for teenagers. It's not that much surprise, yeah? We all know that when we are banned, we tend to do that activity more. The same goes for teenagers. So for explanation, you can say it can have an opposite effect on them, on specifically those who have adhered to the rules, meaning the law-abiding ones. Such nice, perfect technical words for this topic. Let's see the meaning of adhere. When somebody adheres to the rules, means as a phrasal verb, which is formal. It would be excellent for your writing. To continue to behave according to a particular rule, agreement, or belief. And in the second example, you can see adhere to the rules is a collocation. What about law-abiding ones? Law-abiding, respectful of the law and obeying it, such as a law-abiding citizen. So we said curfews have an opposite effect on those teenagers that have already adhered to the rules, to those ones who have obeyed the rules, the current rules, the law-abiding ones. So in this case, we are talking that banning everyone, every teenager, is going to have an opposite effect. Why? Because some of them have already said yes to every rule that the government has put for them, but if you put too much pressure on them, it may have an opposite effect, because not all of them are criminals. If you've watched the previous part, we talked about that some teenagers may be vulnerable, some of them may be criminals, but not all of them, yeah? The noun of adhere would be adherence, if you want to use the noun form of it, and the verb for law-abiding is abide. The preposition would be by. Abide by something is a phrasal verb to accept and obey decision, rule, agreement, etc., even though you may not agree with it. So the example is, we have to abide by the referee's decision. So how this works? Putting curfews may pique or arouse the curiosity to be out of doors during the restricted hours. Pique and arouse are making collocations with curiosity, and they are quite less common, advanced C1 words for this topic. Let's see the exact meanings. Pick as a verb, not the first meaning, the second one. Pick your interest or curiosity. You see, this is that much exact that you have to use it either with curiosity or interest for this meaning. Especially American English, to make you feel interested in something or someone. Also, we have arouse here for curiosity. Let's see the meaning of that one too. Again, the first one, arouse interest or expectations or etc. This is it, and means to make you become interested, expect something, curious about something. So this imposition of curfew may pique or arouse the curiosity of them to be out of doors. And generally, you can say limitations can spark or provoke a sense of rebellion. A lot of nice words here. Let's start with rebellion. The second meaning, when someone opposes or fights against people in authority or ideas which they do not agree with. Teenagers may get a sense of rebellion, a sense of fighting against those authorities who have put the rule of curfew for them. Specific words for rebellion can be spark or provoke. Why? Because spark as a verb, also you can use spark off, means to be the cause of something, especially trouble or violence. Synonym, provoke. Look at the second meaning. Spark somebody's interest, hope, curiosity, etc. To make someone feel interested, hopeful, curious, etc. So when you pick their curiosity or spark their curiosity, you are also sparking a sense of rebellion because they do want to disobey the rule then. And if you want to use the other members of the word family of rebellion, you can also talk about rebels, the people who are going to fight against the government. You can also say that those people are rebellious. Rebellious is the adjective, and the adverb is rebelliously. So they may try to disobey the rule, the curfew, rebelliously, showing that they do not agree with the authorities. In addition, you can say being prohibited can lead to crossing the boundaries. As I just said at the start of this idea, when you are banned, when you are prohibited, it can cause crossing the boundaries because it may provoke a sense of curiosity. You want to see what is beyond these boundaries, Quite sensible. And the noun of prohibited is prohibition. Prohibition. The pronunciation is like that. Prohibit, prohibition. And as you can see, prohibit to say that an action is illegal or not allowed, which we had in the question. Synonym, ban, forbid. Be prohibited from doing something. Grammar hint is prohibit should be passive in this meaning. As we did, we used being prohibited, so use it in the passive form. If you want to explain more, you can also say those teenagers may feel a stronger urge to go beyond the boundaries, to challenge or circumvent the restrictions. This is totally astonishing. If you use this one for this topic, the examiner's mind would be like this. Blow. Circumvent is a formal verb. Yeah, it is formal. As you can see, you barely heard this before because it is formal and it is used for some specific topics like law or crime. The meaning is to avoid a problem or rule that restricts you, especially in a clever or dishonest way, used to show disapproval. I said this fact before that when in the dictionary we have used to show disapproval, this means that this word has a negative concept, a negative meaning, not a positive meaning. And you can see here why, because you are somehow bending the rule in a clever or dishonest way. Teenagers may challenge or circumvent the restrictions, try to avoid them with a trick. The noun of it would be circumvention. So we may face the circumvention of restrictions by them. Let's talk about how this can happen. Teenagers may feel curious about what they might be missing or what activities may take place during those hours, during nighttime. So they may be lying to their parents. They may be avoiding being accompanied by them or going out with them. So what may they do? They may be stealthily venturing out during curfew hours. Stealthily. The adjective means moving or doing something quietly and secretly. So I have used the adverb form, stealthily. And venturing out. Let's see the meaning of venture out. To go somewhere that could be dangerous. See, that's why I have used venture here. They are going out during curfew hours, and that can be dangerous because they are not accompanied by an adult. And look at this little hint. Venture is intransitive and always should be with an adverb or a preposition. I have used out, going out, venturing out. As a result, we may have more teenagers out at nighttime, not less. Even those who used to be the law-abiding ones, remember? And nighttime is a paraphrase for night. Even those who used to be in obedience. So we have obey a rule, and now here I have used the noun of it. When someone does what they are told to do or what a law, rule, etc. says they must do, and look at the prepositions. Obedience to something or be or do something in obedience. Let's jump to the second main idea. Ready? Other approaches can be taken rather than limiting teenagers. You have said that, okay, curfews are ineffective, are inefficient in the long term. Why having curfews? Let's have other approaches. So let's see the explanation. You can talk about this fact that curfew is one of those zero tolerance policies. Zero tolerance. That's fairly academic. Let's see the meaning. A way of dealing with crime in which every person who breaks the law, even in a very small way, is punished as severely as possible. You can say not all teenagers are vulnerable, not all teenagers are criminals, and it's quite unfair if we punish every one of them by not letting them be outdoors. This is a kind of zero tolerance policy. You can say that such policies would be without addressing the root of the problem. Address here means solve. You can use address for problem as a collocation. And the root means the basic cause, the main cause of that problem. So what should be done instead? We wanted to say another approach should be taken. Instead, we can have a comprehensive approach. A comprehensive approach that targets the underlying causes or problems. Comprehensive means including all the necessary facts, details, or problems that need to be dealt with. Synonym, thorough. So comprehensive approach is a collocation. It means let's look at the details and include all options, not just one option, which would be having some negatives on the street, so we would have curfews. No. Instead, let's look at the underlying causes or problems, addressing the root of the problem. As you can see here, we use underlying just with cause, principle, problem, such ideas. And those ideas, those causes, would be the most important ones, although not easily noticed. We are having some problems that are not easily noticed, so we didn't have any another idea for solving them. As a result, we put a curfew. Let's actually look at those underlying problems. How? Like having a superior educational system. Superior is a far nicer way of saying better. Instead of better, I have used superior. How should be that superior educational system? Better education, in which we can educate teenagers about potential dangers. We can educate them, we can teach them and promote or raise or heighten their awareness of common tactics used by criminals. If you've watched part 2 before, we talked about how some criminals may deceive some teenagers. In their schools, we can promote their awareness, raise or heighten their awareness. All of these are collocating with awareness, mean increase, just nicer ways of saying increase. Another option, beside educating them and increasing their awareness, would be letting them have extracurricular activities. Extracurricular activities are not part of the course that a student is doing at a school or college, but something beside that. For example, in the evening, they may have some activities arranged by their schools. Let's go to the example of those extracurricular activities, how we can talk more specifically about them. Those activities can occupy their time during non-school hours. Such a perfect description. Occupy their time means take up their time, fill their time. So this is a collocation with time. Then they would not have much time roaming the streets or be off the streets or wandering the streets or killing their time with their friends, for example. You have 4 options here to say what would be those non-school hours activities. Roam means to walk or travel, usually for a long time with no clear purpose or direction. That's why we used just killing time. And wandering means to walk slowly across or around an area, usually without a clear direction or purpose. Instead, what will they do? We would keep them engaged in constructive and fulfilling pursuits, like sports, like the arts. Let's start with constructive. I guess you can guess the meaning because it comes from construct, construction. Useful and helpful or likely to produce good results. Constructive and fulfilling are quite related to each other. Pursuit. Look at the 3rd meaning. Countable, usually plural, and formal. That's why I told you this is perfect for your writing. An activity such as a sport or hobby which you spend a lot of time doing. Example, pursuits such as swimming and tennis. They would be involved in better options rather than just being outdoors, like sports or the arts. The arts means generally all kinds of art, painting, music, what else? Literature, film, movies, these things. Then what will happen? They would explore or discover their interests, their talents, and would be sharing similar interests or fostering friendships. Foster to help a skill, feeling, idea, etc. develop over a period of time. So you can make long-lasting friendships. Afterwards, they would have more teamwork, more self-discipline, more perseverance. Perseverance is determination to keep trying to achieve something in spite of difficulties. Used to show approval. They would have more perseverance, more determination to achieve their goals. What can happen even after that? They would develop a sense of identity, a sense of self-esteem, or a sense of accomplishment, which would result in not becoming delinquents. Even you can add this one, When a person has identity, has self-esteem, has accomplishment, perseverance, self-discipline, teamwork, these things, as a result, they would not become highly likely, they would not become criminals. That was the whole explanation of the second idea. Let's go to the third idea. We can also say teenagers are not feeling independent and mature when we have curfew. How curfew would unfairly or disproportionately restrict the freedom or autonomy or independence of all teenagers. Autonomy means independence, quite the same as freedom. Let's look at the meaning of disproportionately. We have disproportionate as the adjective, means too much or too little in relation to something else. And this is an academic word. I have used the adverb disproportionately. Their freedom is restricted in an unfair way, unfairly or disproportionately. Too little. Also, curfews, overly restrictive. Overly just means too much, restrictive, restricting. This rule infringes on or upon their individual rights. Infringe on or upon something. This is a phrasal verb meaning to limit someone's freedom in some way. And we have used infringe on or upon for their individual rights. Curfew limits their freedom, limits their individual rights. And then those teenagers would be stigmatized and labeled as potential troublemakers or as vulnerable ones. Why? Because somehow we want to protect them or ban them, and that's what means considering them as troublemakers or vulnerable people. Yeah, quite sensible. Being stigmatized means to be treated by society as if you should feel ashamed of your situation or behavior. This should be in the passive form, be stigmatized. Perfect for your writing, and also why not for your speaking. This means that teenagers would feel somehow ashamed of their situation because they are labeled as potential troublemakers. Troublemakers who deliberately causes problems or arguments. So if you use potential troublemakers, this means that they are going to make problems somehow in the future, or if they have the chance. And this is quite unfair for all of them to be considered. This labeling can undermine their self-image or self-esteem or maturity. Undermine. To gradually make someone or something less strong or less effective. Gradually make their self-image, self-esteem, maturity less effective, less strong. And what is self-image? The idea that you have of yourself, especially of your abilities, character, or appearance. It is very relevant to self-esteem. So when you label somebody as either troublemakers, causing troubles, considering them as somehow criminals, or you label them as vulnerable ones, tending to be the victims of other people, that's why we have the curfew. This would be somehow undermining their maturity. This does make sense. Let's consider more details. In this situation, teenagers would have a feeling of being treated like children, and they would feel frustration, resentment, powerlessness. Wow, such complex academic words. Frustration. Feeling of being annoyed, upset, or impatient because you cannot control or change a situation or achieve something. Teenagers cannot change the rule. The authorities should change the rule. Resentment. Feeling of anger because something has happened that you think is unfair. It's unfair to ban all of them from being outdoors. Powerlessness is the noun of the adjective, powerless. Unable to stop and control something because you do not have the power, strength, or legal right to do so. So it is reasonable that they would feel so. And these feelings contribute to a sense of being judged or mistrusted. We already said that they are labeled as potential troublemakers or vulnerable ones, so they are judged here in a wrong way somehow, and they are mistrusted. They are not trusted. They would feel social exclusion. Social exclusion means they are not included in the whole society. They are excluded. Exclusion is the noun of exclude, which means not include. Consequently, there would be some negatives, like a lack of self-confidence. Yeah, it's totally true. When their self-image, self-esteem, maturity are undermined, then they would lack self-confidence, which may arguably lead to having more criminals in the future. So let's analyze this sentence. Arguably is used when you are giving your opinion to say that there are good reasons why something might be true. If a person experiences frustration, feeling of not controlling the situation that is annoying them, resentment, feeling that they have been treated unfairly, or powerlessness, they cannot control the situation or what is done to them, then arguably this can lead to having less self-confidence, and they would have more tendency to become criminals. Why not? They have taken their freedom, their maturity, their self-esteem, their self-confidence. Here you can see how curfew, which was supposed to make less criminals, can, in some situations, in the long term, lead to having more criminals. That was it. Tell me, how was this series? And also another essay question to have it assessed for you. Bye for now.